and people don't want to hire
but
an ex-con.
That was still their choice to become an ex-con.
Right, but that doesn't mean people shouldn't get a second chance once they've rehabilitated themselves. The fact that somebody went to jail should determine that they've paid their debt to society, and it should have no bearing on whether or not you want to give this person a job.
Well, maybe
but it does.
Maybe it does or doesn't. I can't speak to that.
In
some
cases.
I have done time. I have done the rehabilitation stuff, and I don't work for companies that don't hire those kinds of people. Not because they don't hire those kinds of people, but because I don't want to work for people like that.
Exactly. But the fact that people can get away with doing that is what's not right. You shouldn't I agree. I'll use Michael Vick as an example.
Michael Vick,
the former NFL quarterback.
Okay.
He played for the Falcons, and in 2008, I think it was, maybe earlier, the early 2000s, mid to late 2000s, he got in trouble for having a dog fighting ring in his house.
Okay.
A terrible thing.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But he went to jail for that, did his time, paid his debt to society, and now, 10 years later, people still give him shit about it. They still, they still talk shit about the fact that Michael Vick fought dogs. Meanwhile, I forget it's just that people don't forget. They should let it go, but they don't, is the point that I'm trying to make there. And I think that it's unacceptable when we're a government. We're supposed to be a government by the people, of the people, for the people. Mm-hmm. And the people in power don't give a fuck about people like you, me, and producer. They don't care. As long as their pockets are fat, they don't give a fuck what happens to us.
Do you remember when we had John Buffington on and he was talking about control your immediate circle of influence?
Yes.
Our immediate circle of influence, we have a lot of power there. We don't have to work these menial jobs. We have things that we want to accomplish in life, right?
Yeah. And
we're doing those things.
Sure.
While working a menial job, making sure that our bills are paid and shit. And you obviously have a lot more responsibility financially, and I don't know what the other term would be, but I don't know. What do you say? Morally, kind of, maybe?
Morally,
as a father, your moral obligation is to provide for him, right?
Sure, yeah, I guess.
And you're financially obligated, but more than it being an obligation, it's a conscious choice you're making, right?
Yeah, well, because I don't want to be a deadbeat dad.
Right, and that's good and admirable, right? But we don't have to work those jobs. We choose to.
What other jobs are we going to get?
We don't have to have those types of... what I'm saying is...
But you have to have a job.
We can create our own wealth. You, right now, are on the path of doing that, right?
Yeah.
You're on the path of becoming a well-known and respected comic in this community and then in a larger community eventually, I
hope so.
Right?
Sure.
And so, the effort that you're putting in right now is going to pay off dividends later.
Right.
So this idea of putting the work in now, being able to endure some short-term discomfort right now to be able to experience long-term gain down the road, that's the philosophy that some people that want to raise minimum wage will never be able to grasp. And that's a blanket statement, probably not fair to say, but I think that there's some validity to it. Because they're I'm entering into a what is it called? Man, I wish I could think of the word that I was looking for. What is it called whenever you don't have to have any experience going into a job?
Entry level.
Yeah, thank you. Entry level employment.
Right.
Fuck McDonald's or what other... all the fast foods entry level, right?
Right.
And then I cannot think of any other entry level positions, but producers got some.
Gas station.
Gas stations, thank you. And I really I can't think of gas stations and like the ice rink and whatever, like all these jobs that teenagers are great at because they're
I don't know that they're great at them, but I see
great
what you're saying.
for like
I see what you're saying.
They don't have to have like the responsibility of a nuclear plant,
Right.
like entry level. Like I'm not really in a position where I have any skills or knowledge to do anything more than this, right? And so like that idea is it could and should cultivate this let me keep adding to my knowledge base, my skill level, like going to school or learning a trade or whatever,
Yeah.
like that. The minimum wage being low should be an encouragement to add more skill, add a higher ability to add value in a shorter amount of time. Like eventually, let's say, how long have you been doing comedy?
About 9 years overall.
Okay, so
give or take.
9 years ago when you first started, how long of a set could you do?
Couple minutes.
Okay, couple minutes. How long of a set can you do right now?
45 to an hour, probably.
Okay.
If given the opportunity.
So 9 years, you've been developing your craft. You're becoming more skilled. In theory, 45 minutes. I don't know what comics make or anything, but and I don't think anybody really needs to know. But like the 45 minutes that you're performing your fucking heart out, you're capable of making a lot more in 45 minutes versus the couple of minutes that you could have, like the terrible probably couple of minutes that you could do 9 years ago.
Right, but the difference there though is that being a comedian or an actor or somebody that's, a performer, you can't just show up to the venue having no experience and expect that they're going to give you money to entertain people.
Right.
You just can't. It doesn't work like that. And even still, as long as I've been doing comedy, and I can't speak for places everywhere, but I know that the majority of clubs have not changed their prices for what they're paying comedians. Now I know that it hasn't changed at Liquid, and so I'm more experienced now than I was, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get paid any more to host than I would have 6 years ago than I am today, because that's just what the the pay is for a host.
Were you hosting 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. But you are now featuring.
Yes,
and you are getting paid more.
Yeah, I moved up the ladder, but also if they need me to come in and host for whoever, like say somebody drops out at the last minute and I'm available,
right? I
have no problem saying, "Oh yeah, I'll host this show," because whatever, I get to tell jokes in front of people for money. So really, it's not that bad.
It's a win-win.
But it's not like I can say, "All right, well I'll host, but only if I get feature money."
Right.
Because
which would be really unrealistic of you to even ask.
But comparing those two things are apples and oranges, because entertainers and athletes on average get paid a ridiculously higher amount of money than like teachers and social workers and bus drivers. And so like Peyton Manning was making millions of dollars a year to throw a football across a field.
Right.
Granted, there's a lot of, you get pretty banged up playing football, sure.
And the amount of time that goes in each week to be able to do
absolutely.
What he does.
But at the same time, I couldn't teach. Like I can get up on stage and tell jokes, but I couldn't teach you how to do calculus.
Right.
Meanwhile, teachers aren't making those types of like a teacher might need a second job.
Right.
Because teaching doesn't pay as well.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is entirely accurate or if it's a blanket statement, but a lot of teachers go into that profession because that's what they're passionate about.
Right.
And if there's passion, the income isn't as important.
Maybe the income isn't as important, but it should be.
Well, whether it should or
be
shouldn't be isn't in question. Like what's in question is like a person who is outcome oriented versus a person who is income oriented. And if you have passion for what you're doing, it's the outcome you're more concerned about than the income.
Right. But then there are also situations where, like for me, yes, I'm a comedian, and I'm getting to a point where hopefully that'll be the only job I need.
Right.
But I still have to go to work at a place, at any place that I go to work can fire me for literally any reason. Mm-hmm. Like people feel guilty about calling in. People feel guilty about taking time off, and some places will require a doctor's note when they don't provide you adequate insurance to go to the doctor. They still want you to go get a doctor's note because you have the flu or whatever, and it's just ridiculous to me that in a country that is the most powerful country in the world. We are one of the richest countries in the world. America. Yeah.
America.
One of the richest, most powerful countries in the world. We have people who are struggling to get by in the same breath as a guy like the people who own Walmart, right? Some of their workers are on welfare. If you have a job, if you have a 30 to 40 hour a week job, there's no reason you should need food stamps. It shouldn't happen, but it does.
Yeah, but
because of the disparity in.
You're taking a corporation like Walmart and generalizing that towards everybody that is rich.
Because they're all the same.
But that's not true.
Most of them,
dude. Warren Buffett. Are you familiar with him?
I've heard the name.
He contributes like an insane amount of his income every year to charitable stuff.
What are his workers making though?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Like it's one thing to give $2 million to the rainforests, but if the people who are making you that money aren't seeing any kind of benefit from it, except, well, you were late 2 days in a row. Sorry, you're fired. Well, but my car broke down. Well, you should have fixed it. Well, you should pay me more money.
Why don't we look up other people that make a lot of money and what their employees make?
Sure.
Because like it's fucking ridiculous to me that Walmart has gotten away with how much shit that they get away with, right?
Yeah.
And so like this is a thing that we talked about the other night, like voting with your dollar.
Yeah.
Like we vote with our dollar. We talked about how we both buy stuff from Walmart.
Yeah.
Because it's really inexpensive.
Yeah.
But we are adding to the problem.
And you can go into Walmart and get groceries, electronics, like you can do
it's a matter of convenience.
It's a one-stop shop. Sure.
Yeah.
But it's also, they're not paying their workers enough, which sucks. And if there was a cheaper alternative, I mean, if there was a Winco closer to me, then I would go to Winco because their employees are like stockholders in the company. Like they're all making decent money from what I hear. I don't know. I'm not sure, how it works, but they at least own a piece of the company, if I'm not mistaken. Producer is nodding that I'm right. So yes. Boom.
Yeah, and
nailed it.
But like that, the point of that though is what I'm saying is like we do vote for our dollar and we add to the problem and we make choices out of convenience to purchase at a place like Walmart, and not just convenience, but on our own pocketbooks. And then we're going to sit here and talk shit about the fact that their employees aren't being accommodated appropriately.
Because this is America. And we have the freedom to talk shit about
I don't
whatever we want.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk shit, but what I am saying is that we're talking shit while we're doing the same shitty stuff.
Right, but we're not. So